Hello and welcome to the Sports Grad Podcast, your bite-sized guide to enter the sports industry. And joining me across the desk, as usual, is the passionate Ruben Williams. How are you, mate?
G'day, Ryan. I'm very well, thank you. I'm super excited for this episode in particular because we finally got one of the big four on.
Yeah.
There's AFL, soccer, NRL, cricket, netball, the big five, I should say.
Yeah, I was going to say you're missing one.
The big five. And now we've finally got a CEO from the Big Five on in Kelly Ryan. So amazing to get her time, amazing to get her thoughts. So much to get from this episode. So we're stoked to have her join in the studio.
Well, you did compare her to Gary Ablett in this episode.
And rightfully so.
Rightfully so, which is great. But that just gives people the, I guess,
that's all you need to know.
The gravity of the guests we have on board today. So, no, I'm very much looking forward to it. So let's get cracking. I'm Ryan Walker, he is Ruben Williams, and we are two mates who met at Cricket Australia, and now we help people find their own dream job through this very podcast and our online community. If you want to follow us, head over to LinkedIn, or even better, if you want to connect with us and hundreds of others working in sport, jump into the Sports Grad community.
And a quick shout out to a handful of our Sports Grad community members. And I'm saying a handful because Netball Australia, since they joined the Sports Grad community in February, have gone on an absolute hiring spree inside. So a quick shout out to Saskia Enes, Rahul Rawat, Hamish Bigwood, Sarah Pretty, Olivia Newman, Luke Richardson, and Anant Veer Signania. I'm sure I'm missing somebody else because they have hired literally like a dozen people since they joined. All of these Sports Grad members are now inside Netball Australia HQ, just living the dream. So well done, guys, and well done to Netball Australia for jumping on and hiring those fabulous people too. So if you are like Saskia, Rahul, Hamish, Sarah, Olivia, Luke, and Anant Veer, and if you want your foot in the door of the sports industry, or if you're like Netball Australia who just wants amazing people, then jump into the Sports Grad community because there really is something for everybody inside.
Absolutely, Rubes. Now, a new national survey done by Deakin University found that while nearly all Australians, and that's 97%, believe that Australia is a sporting nation, there is still low awareness of the projected industry growth and career potential in sport, which is just baffling to me. Australia is set to enter the golden decade of sport, with the nation to host 10 major global sporting events over the next 10 years, which is going to generate thousands of job opportunities, which is just massive. So if you want to be basically first in line for all those jobs, and there is genuinely going to be thousands of them, study with the world's best at Deakin. Visit their website for more info. Deakin is ranked number 1 in the world for sports science, might I add, and 6th in the world for sports-related subjects. So it really is a no-brainer to jump on at Deakin.
Thank you to our friends at Deakin. Now, let me introduce you to our guest today, Ryan. Kelly Ryan. Great name.
Great second name.
Kelly started off her career by doing a bachelor's degree of marketing at RMIT, which, for those who don't know, I dropped out of. She's done very well to get through it.
Yeah.
Once she's gone through her marketing degree at RMIT, she's gone into radio with Nova, moved to Foxtel as a brand manager. Then she arrived at the Western Bulldogs and literally knocked the door down to get a job in marketing and events there. And you'll find out exactly what she did in just a moment.
Literally.
Then with the door still on its hinges at the AFL house, she's moved into a brand manager role there. Then moved up to the Gold Coast, the sunny Gold Coast, into her first executive position as general manager of marketing in a brand new AFL club, before coming back to the Bulldogs as chief marketing officer during their premiership season.
Wow.
Drought-breaking premiership season. Would have been an incredible time to be at the Bulldogs. Before making it back to AFL House, and now is the CEO of Netball Australia. Ryan, Kelly was incredible to talk to.
She was, mate, and the resume speaks for itself, wasn't it? It was a great episode, and just hearing how Kelly got her foot in the door for me was fantastic, and just became one of the only female CEOs in Australian sport at the moment. So just hearing that journey, she'll go through where she started. We mentioned the Bulldogs knocking the door down. We'll hear more about that, but just hearing the journey to get there is just what we really wanted to hear, and we can relate to some of the parts, but it's just great to hear where she came from and now where she is now.
Yeah, absolutely. I also loved hearing about what Kelly looks for when she's hiring. We mentioned those several people who've got jobs at Netball Australia. They all carry this trait that Kelly looks for when she's hiring people, and that's getting passed down to her team and the whole organisation. So really great to get her perspective on what's important in candidates entering the sports industry.
Absolutely. And a question we ask often on the podcast, and that is, getting our guest tip for their 20-year-old self who wanted to work in sport. We asked Kelly the same question, and her tip was fantastic. I think we can all take a leaf from her book in terms of her advice. So plenty to look forward to. Grab a pen, enjoy this chat with Kelly Ryan. Kelly, welcome to the Sports Grad podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Kelly, it's lovely that you've been able to join us in the studio. We're very grateful to have your time today. We're really keen to find out how you got to where you are, how you became the CEO of Netball Australia. And in doing a bit of research, we found out that you started way back at the Western Bulldogs by just literally knocking down the door with, I think, 50 unanswered voice messages. How did your journey to Netball Australia begin?
Yeah, well, it did. Feels like an eternity ago that it did start from my career point of view. But, I did a traditional journey, I would suggest, that straight out of school, I went to uni and studied a Bachelor of Business majoring in marketing, and I knew that was the field that I somewhat wanted to go into. Something around, marketing and advertising was the initial plan. And then I did, kind of think that it was important to do something that you're really interested in and really, generally want to know more about, and that, helps bridge the gap between work and life, I suppose. So I actually started my career in radio. Not on the air, mind you, but
so you're well equipped for this podcast.
Yeah, seemingly so, but no, I stayed well away from the microphone. But I was really interested in the media, so I started in that first. And as many people have done and continue to do, I started volunteering. So I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go and help with outside broadcasts with Fox FM, it was at the time. So that's how I started, and I did a little bit of a stint in radio for 5 or 6 years, helped start Nova 100, and then decided that I thought I'd try football. So that's where the urge came from, then starting to decide, how do I get into the AFL scene? So I did. I literally harassed, potentially, the HR manager at the Western Bulldogs at the time, back in the early 2000s. So vastly different landscape to how it is today. And the persistence paid off because he literally succumbed to the pressure of my messages and agreed to meet with me. And I'll never forget those moments. There's moments in your career where you just can't forget. And the first thing he said to me, I think even before I even said hello, was, "We have no jobs here." I'm like, okay, that's fine, great. I'm here.
Great.
Yeah, no, it was a win to me just to be stepping inside the four walls of the Bulldogs. And then lo and behold, before I left, I got offered 2. So there were jobs there. It's just a matter of having the will and the energy, I suppose, to not relent on what it is that you want to do. And then from there, it's literally, spent 15 years in the AFL industry trying all sorts of different experiences. And that was one thing that I really set my mind to, because I did decide probably about 10 years ago that I had this ambition of being a CEO. Naturally, she probably assumed it would be in the AFL space in some way, shape or form. So just took every opportunity when something arose, whether or not it was really, clear in my skill set, just to grab it with both hands and have a go at it. So that led me from the Bulldogs into AFL House, doing some marketing activity there. Then I went to the Gold Coast and helped start the Gold Coast Suns. Back to the Bulldogs again for another stint across the premiership year in 2016, and also starting the women's team in 2017. Then into Marvel Stadium, and then from there to Netball Australia. So there's no career plan that I don't think actually has everything completely mapped. So you got to be prepared to just take some leaps of faith, make some big decisions along your way in terms of, does this move help me to get to my next move? The answer is, who really knows? But taking some risks along the way certainly pays off, I think.
Yeah, the move to the Gold Coast Suns, was that very much to do with that goal of becoming a CEO? You probably saw that as a great opportunity, a new club. You can stamp, your I guess your presence on the place and see what you can
make your
achieve.
mark.
Make your mark.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my first executive position. So that opportunity to be part of the leadership team of an AFL club was really the starting point for that. And from there, just being exposed not only to what you do, and I think there's that distinct difference when you work in anything, you're either working on your own thing or you're working on the whole club. And the opportunity to actually go and be in an executive position not only meant that I got to focus on my own space every day, but I really got the opportunity to buy into every other aspect of the club. And that was, from football discussions through to, how to run a stadium, through to, how do you develop a fan base in a market that doesn't really know anything or care much about AFL. So it was really the opportunity to think differently that I really loved. And I literally, that the AFL, wanted me to go there and help the club because it was getting to the pointy end and there was a lot of work that needed to be done. And I said to them, I'll do it, but 18 months maximum, and then I'm coming straight back to my job at AFL House. And lo and behold, spent 5.5 years there. So it was a long 18 months in the end.
Must have enjoyed the warm weather.
I did. I enjoyed a lot about it. I loved it. It was hard work. It was an absolute grind trying to turn people's attention to AFL, trying to turn people's attention to sport. Gold Coast is an interesting place to try and get commitment from anyone on anything. But yeah, the lifestyle, just the people that I worked with were just amazing. Just had the best time working with some of the best people. And then, after 5.5 years, sort of was time to get back to Melbourne, closer to family and try something else.
Back to the cold.
Sounds like you've taken a very similar trajectory to Gary Ablett Jr.
Yeah, Gary and I, we're like this, and he went, I went. We were a package deal.
Great comparison.
Yeah, it is a really good comparison. No, Gary, great guy. I have a lot of time for Gary. He gave a lot back to not only the Gold Coast Suns, but to people more broadly. He certainly helped a number of staff at the Gold Coast Suns if they were going through something tough. Gary was there to help them. So he's a really great person, and not to mention an absolutely unbelievable footballer.
I want to dive back to the start of your first opportunity at the Bulldogs. Why do you think that HR manager gave you an opportunity?
I think the first point is really getting your foot in the door, and that was really what it was. I believed in myself, and I believed that I had skills that would be really relative and to any business really, but chose the Bulldogs at that particular time. So I think he saw that. I think he saw the sheer determination, the ability and confidence to back myself in, and I think that was enough for him to go, all right, well, could pretty much put her in a number of different positions, and as I said, there was 2 miraculously came available by the end of that discussion. So, and they were 2 vastly different roles that I was offered. And I think it just, the number one thing is I really believe that if people have got great values and have got great determination and want to succeed, that's all you need to start in any business and, in an environment, especially, sport and be it at the Bulldogs or be it at Netball Australia. If you've got that, we can teach you the skills. It's just, you've just got to have the appetite to want to do it, and we can teach you the skills. And that's really where it started from. I didn't have any experience in sport at that particular time, but I had the appetite and I had the, the determination, and that's all it took to really get that first start.
Were you like that as a student in university as well?
I was, yeah. I was very, definitely not the smartest person by far, but worked hard and made sure that even, during VCE and through to uni, that I really did give myself every opportunity. And it's all about options, really. The harder you work, the more options you've got. When you got options, then you got choice. So that really for me was I just put myself in the best position at every moment that I possibly could, and then I've got options. And then from there, that's where you start making those calculated decisions on what happens next. And then you get the opportunity to take some risks across that time as well. So it's about getting that balance right. But like I said, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. There's just the way that you think is right at that particular moment in time that you've got to go for it.
Yeah. I think one thing that's really interesting when you're in uni is when you're a student, you're kind of looking around thinking, who's going to make it? Like, who's going to go far? What do the future CEOs look like?
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard, as you say, to pinpoint a exact trajectory into that job. But what you've done really well is just throw yourself into everything to give yourself that option, which I think a lot of students can take a lot out of.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, your dream, whatever it is, or your ambition is your ambition. So no one can take that away from you. And I think it's just a matter of how you go about getting to it, notwithstanding there are highs and lows in all of it. And I think everybody naturally thinks that your career has this, really consistent trajectory, but you got to be prepared for it to crash and burn sometimes around you. But again, if you've got your ambition and your dream, then that's for you just to hang on to, and then you work a way back to try and get back to, the path that you want to be on. So I don't think there's a particular type of person that looks like a CEO or anything like that. I think it just, again, comes down to those that want to do it and then those that work the hardest to potentially get there. And not everyone wants to be a CEO by any stretch. It's a really tough gig, but if you do, then you just give yourself every opportunity to get there. And when you got the choice to, again, say yes or no, then fabulous. You've done something right along the way.
The choice to be a CEO, that's such an interesting thing because, you mentioned not everyone wants to be, but everyone sort of looks up at them and thinks, oh, that's what success looks like. That's the best job you can get. So how did you come to that decision? Like, what made you decide, hey, I do want to be a CEO?
I think just years of observing and just, really watching astutely what my CEOs were doing around me, and just, probably seeing the breadth of information that they get, the breadth of issues that they deal with, just the complete diversity in a role like that, because you are literally touching every part of your business. And naturally it's quite a bit different when you're leading an industry as well. So you're trying to manage your own business and, the staff and the complexities that come with that. But you're also responsible for leading an industry, which adds a whole heap of other dimensions around that, and just the reliance that other people and other stakeholders have on you for the answers. And I've never professed to have all the answers, and I never will, because the whole part of being a CEO is actually to build a team around you that does have the answers and have skills that offset yours, have personality types that offset yours, and that well-roundedness as a team, I think is what enables anybody to be a successful CEO. So that's, since I've started at Netball Australia almost 12 months ago, really been focused on building the team around me that I think complements me, challenges me, but, at the end of the day, we all make the decisions together, and I think that's a really powerful thing as well.
I think it takes quite a lot of time for people to work out what they want to do with their career, and a lot of discovery and trying lots of different things. When did your career direction start to anchor towards that CEO position? Was there a particular point in time where you thought, my intention is now clear, this is what I want to go for?
Yeah, when I was at the Gold Coast, so spending 12 months or so working in that leadership role, and then having the opportunity to actually do some really solid development from a leadership perspective. And to me, that was the moment when I realised you can have all the skills in the world, but unless you round it out with actually understanding what it takes to be a great leader, then that will be a limiting factor. So I had this really immersive experience with our executive team on the Gold Coast, and that really opened my eyes to, what else do I do outside of just turning up every day and doing my job. So it was probably about 12 years ago really that I had that opportunity, and then from there I just started working towards it, learning, not doing things well, learning from that, doing things well, learning things from that. So just constantly challenging myself to not only be great at what I do from a functional and a task perspective, but then spending a lot more time focusing on the leadership side of things, because at the end of the day, no matter what business you're in, and whilst I work in netball, at the end of the day I work in the people business, so it's all about people. So that's something that I'm acutely aware of on a daily basis.
Could I ask how old you were when you found that goal?
You're going to out my age if I start telling you the age that I was, and then you track that back.
Oh, no.
Look,
only if you want to.
it was probably early 30s, around the 30 mark. Whether I had a distinct desire to do it before that, I don't know. I think I was just busy doing stuff, having fun. Like I said, I started working in radio. That was just fun. I just turned up every day and just had a whole heap of fun. And then, you start kind of getting more serious. So, I certainly wasn't 21. I wasn't 18. I wasn't 15. I didn't have this ambition for my entire life or entire career. I think it just comes together at a point that, again, makes sense for where you are and what you've learnt and the environments that you've been in.
The reason I ask is because I think that's really refreshing for a lot of people to hear that, you can be in your early 30s to find out exactly where you want to get to in your career. You don't have to have it all figured out when you're in university.
No, and don't rush it. I think there's this innate desire, and we probably all set ourselves goals by 30. I will be this, and my job will be this, and my title will be this, and by 40 it'll be this. Gosh, it's just setting up, so many expectations on yourself.
Yeah.
So I didn't. I did have probably, in those key milestones of birthdays, you have markers, and sometimes you just way off. You just don't hit them, and then sometimes they come real quick, and you're like, gosh, I probably am lucky to be in the position that I'm in at this moment. But yeah, God, life is long sometimes if you're fortunate enough. So you don't want to have it all done by the time you're 40, and then you sit around going, well, what's next? Because no doubt when you hit the CEO position, there is a big, what's next? There's naturally an assumption that you're going to be a CEO for the next 20 years until you retire, and that also is not probably realistic as well, because they're big jobs.
Yeah.
Take a lot of energy.
Move into a board, go do a few consulting jobs here and there.
That's it. It's usually the way, isn't it?
Kelly, you mentioned you were in the people business, which I think is a great term. And we've got a quote here from when you joined Netball, and it reads, "My first priority will be focusing on the people. I want to speak to every single staff member, the member organisations of each state and territory, and all of our sponsors and stakeholders." What did you learn from going through that process?
Well, that's a very distinct advantage of what expectations were, and then reality was a stark difference. So I think that was my plan going in. Then I think within 24 hours, COVID really started to bite again in the middle of last year, and it went to just complete reactive pandemonium, if I'm honest, because, being inside a brand new business with a whole heap of people I've never met before, trying to piece everyone together, and then we're trying to work out how we actually keep Suncorp Super Netball alive at that moment. Meant that all that went out the window, and went into complete reaction mode just to keep going. And that's been my reality. And to be honest, just the breadth of what's happened since, I haven't been able to get that moment back. So I chip it away at it every week, where I try and meet someone new and have a conversation with someone different. But my reality didn't come to fruition, so I had to change the way I've done it. But needless to say, I have had a lot of great conversations, not only with our staff, but staff in our states. And many other sports as well across the time that I have been there, which has been great.
I think it's fair to say most people probably have the same experience.
Yeah,
it is.
We could all have the goals, but unfortunately there was a pandemic, so these things happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Kelly, earlier this year there was a conference that came to Melbourne, the Sport NXT conference.
Yep.
And on one of the days there was a panel with all the CEOs from the national bodies in Australia. You had football, cricket, soccer, NRL, netball. And you were the only female CEO sitting on the panel. What was that experience like? It's, to be honest, a really common experience for me. I mean, having started in AFL 15 years ago, there was not many women at all, especially not in senior leadership, but not even really in middle management to a certain extent. So it's pretty common to me to be in environments which are very male dominated. But yeah, I work with those CEOs a lot. We actually have a lot of meetings together, and it's great. It's a phenomenal group, and I learn so much from them, and they're all a great bunch of business leaders and a great bunch of people in their own right as well. But when you're in that environment where you're kind of all lined up, in a row, and you're like, oh gosh, I do stand out a little bit. It doesn't worry me. Like, I'm not confronted by it or anything like that. I think it just sets a real visual challenge for what happens next, and why aren't there more female CEOs in business? But especially in the sporting landscape, and I think there's obviously still a lot of work to do. I think there's been great progress, and I think the more we talk about it and the more we're attuned to it, then fabulous. We'll keep challenging those norms. But yeah, fair to say there's probably still a fair way to go before we even get to an equal balance, let alone actually having potentially more female domination at some point than male. But we are where we are, and we just keep working through it. You mentioned you're used to it now. Was it ever an issue for you earlier in your career?
It wasn't really, no, because I think, stepping into something like AFL, it's naturally expected that it's male dominated. So I never had a problem with it back then, and I certainly don't have a problem with it now. But I think there's definitely a lot more conversation around the role that women can play in any environment. It's not only women, it's diversity in general. Diversity is key to making different decisions and hearing different opinions. So we've got to really embrace that on all fronts to be ultimately successful.
Is that something that's always on the agenda for you with netball as well? Just making sure that you do have that diversity across staff as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's hugely important that, at the end of the day, you want to put the best person for the job in the job. Yeah. But you want to be able to cast a net wide enough that you're attracting, again, a really different balance and a different dynamic across your group. So it doesn't always look the same, and I think that's the things that we'll keep challenging at netball, is making sure that we still continue to have that real keen eye. Now, naturally, netball does have more female staff than it does male staff, which is, probably different. But at the same time, I think that's on us to actually change that trend a little bit as well, because netball needs to be more diverse in its own right. So we have to start with our own staff base to make sure that we're reflective of the groups and the people that we want to attract to our sport.
What do you think other sports or people in the industry in general can do to promote that equality?
Well, I think everybody has a role, but, I think at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that anybody feels comfortable to put themselves forward for a role to begin with. And I think there's often misconceptions that, I won't be successful, or I won't be good enough, or I don't have experience, or, we come up with our own barriers. If more people put themselves out there for more opportunities, and I think we see it come together a lot quicker. We're really open-minded at netball. We don't need people with sporting experience at all. We don't have a predefined set of experience that we look for. We look for great people that again will align with our values and have drive and determination. And if we can encourage anybody to apply for any role that comes available at netball, then that's where we'll get the benefit as an organisation, which is what we're really looking forward to doing.
I love that, because a lot of people who we speak to say, should I go and work in this area even though it doesn't relate to sport, even though my goal is to work in sport? And we say absolutely. Yeah. Because you're learning different skills that you can bring to an organisation that may be very, just packed with people who have just done sport. So it's a great thing to go and get experience in other areas.
Absolutely.
So, for those listening out there, I think that's a great message right there.
Yeah. Don't underestimate just experience, and I think that's something that you have to get, and that's on you to get, and experience looks different. You can volunteer, you can do everything, and that's the way I started, by fronting up and doing something for zero money whatsoever. But I wanted that experience. I wanted that connection and a way in, and that volunteering experience got me my first paid job. So you really have to put yourself out there, and it doesn't, again, experience will come in all sorts of different denominations, and we don't want the exact same type of person in at Netball Australia in any stretch. So we absolutely want to take those from different sports, different environments, different industries, just to help round us out as a business and open our eyes to things that we don't know, because lo and behold, we don't know everything.
Did you have any female role models growing up in the sports industry?
No, I didn't. No, not at all. Didn't see any, didn't, have any that were really all that visible or accessible to me. So, no, most of my role models are, based, again, off male role models, really, and, working with those that I worked with and I really admired, certain leadership types. That's naturally what I was drawn to. So, certainly had some great connections with some of the female commissioners from an AFL perspective, because I could see there was a genuine investment from them wanting to see more women involved in the sport. But it was really hard to see anybody else that I thought I could, really, really work with. So pretty much everybody that I've ever had a connection with, be it mentorship or whatever, has been male. And I'm okay with that. Like, that's the way it was, and that's, and I've met some fabulous people as a result of that and learnt an enormous amount. So certainly not a bad thing. It's just that was my experience, and hopefully for others their experience is different, and there's more opportunities and there's more women leading sports and business that they can see and we hear about and we talk about. So
Well, it certainly is different now that there's people such as yourself at the helm of netball. Sarah Stiles is doing some great work in government.
Yeah.
Christy Collier-Hill was at the head of the Melbourne Boomers, now the NBL too.
Yeah.
So there are starting to be some more role models for those women and girls coming through. Is there anything that you would say to a female at the start of their career going through university who might have some more doubts than the average male going through university, thinking, is this possible? Can I do it? What do you say to them?
Yeah, look, naturally, I definitely agree that there is something more ingrained in women that feel like they need to overachieve before they, put themselves forward for things. And, and I fully appreciate that. And I've been in that position myself where I'm like, I wouldn't get that job. So what's the point of actually, going for it? The reality is you got nothing to lose, and you're near enough will potentially be better than a number of people around you. So you just have to, find a way, however hard that is, just to drop your own guard. Be prepared to be let down, absolutely. But the risk of not going for something and achieving success because of the fear of being let down is not strong enough. So I think you absolutely just have to embrace, yes, I don't have all the answers and I don't tick all the boxes and I don't even know if I can do it, but I'll work it out later. I'm just going to go for it in this moment in time, and you will learn a lot. You will learn an enormous amount just through the process. Even if you don't make it to the end outcome, it's not a failure. It's just take what you've learned from that experience, and 100% it'll make you stronger for the next experience that you go through.
It's a great answer.
Yeah.
Love that.
And I think at the start as well, when you said, like, as long as you've got that determined belief in what you can do, you don't necessarily need all the skills. That's enough to apply for a job.
100%.
Or in your case, just harass the Western Bulldogs.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose, and, look at, the process that I went through for this CEO position at Netball Australia is, I absolutely interrogated, all the information they supplied, and I go, I'm not sure if I do or don't tick the boxes, but that was the moment I went, I don't care. I'm just throwing caution to the wind. I'll go for it and I'll see how far I get in the process and I'll work it out later. And, did I have doubts about whether or not I could be? So 100% doubted it every step of the way, but thought I'll work it out and I'll worry about it when I get there, if I get there. And that's just, you sometimes we're our own worst enemy. And the reality is sometimes we just, again, need to take a risk, and it's a calculated risk. And I believe that if someone really wants to do something, they'll be able to do it.
Yeah. We've got a couple of questions there for you. First one is, what motivates you to get out of bed each day?
Well, in this role, I'm absolutely motivated to make netball or help netball achieve its potential. I think netball is a phenomenal sport. It is incredibly strong at community level. Yep. We have the most amazing athletes at the elite level. We're unbelievably successful as a sport, but we still haven't found a way to really unlock its complete potential. So that's what drives me every day, to find a way to make it more commercially viable, to find a way to bridge the grassroots participants through to the elite, and enable us to continue to find ways to reinvest the sport, because I believe it is a phenomenal sport and it gives back so much to our community. And I also think netball in Australia has the enormous opportunity to change the trajectory of netball in the world. So we are really working hard to make sure that netball becomes a bigger sport globally as well, and we're just trying to work on playing our role in that. So there's plenty to be excited about with netball, and that's literally what drives me every day.
Amazing. And finally, if you could go back in time to meet 20-year-old Kelly and just drop one bit of wisdom on her, what would you say to younger self?
I would say, probably the similar stuff that I've said. Just go for it. Just, back yourself. If you've got the determination and the will, it'll work it out. Everything will work it out after that. Just keep going. But be prepared to have some knocks along the way as well. And that's probably the part where I would probably give more wisdom to, is that, you do think your career is linear and every roadblock, every building block leads you to the next thing. That's not the case. Sometimes you take 2 steps forward and you take 3 back. And that's the moment, when you're in those moments, you think, gosh, I'm been hit way off course and I don't know if I can get back, but you can get back and you will get back. But embrace the highs and learn from the lows. And from there, whatever you set your mind to, you will absolutely achieve it.
Amazing. Well, Kelly, it has been amazing having you on. I reckon we've spoken about this a fair amount the last few months. We've been dying to get you on. So we really appreciate your time. And some of the messages you spoke about today are just gold for those who are wanting to build a career in sport. So, again, thanks very much for your time. And we'll sure to see how we go to get you on for one day. We never know.
Not an issue whatsoever. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for your time.
All right, Rubes, massive episode. That was just awesome to hear from Kelly and great to have her in the studio. What are some things that you learnt from that?
Yeah, that was huge, Ryan. Fantastic to have one of the CEOs of Australian sport inside the studio chatting with us. Very rare that you get that sort of insight. So super appreciative to Kelly for coming in. The number one thing I'm taking away from Kelly is just her confidence and her ambition when she was young and how that can take you extremely far. Like after listening to her, I'm ready to run through a brick wall. She's got so much confidence and determination. And she really kind of instilled that message in me just listening to her. Like if you want something, absolutely go your hardest at it because nothing will stop you if you want it bad enough. And that was something I really left with from Kelly.
Yeah, I love that. I was ready to jump through a brick wall as well. So great call. I just loved how, and I love this concept of just, you win or you learn. And I think she spoke about, don't see being turned down for a job as a failure. See it as a learning and you're on the path to get to where you want to get to. I think a lot of people out there, they get turned down for a job and they think, this might not be for me and I might go do something else and I'm not good enough. Couldn't be further from the truth. You don't, your path in sport isn't linear. I think she spoke about that a fair bit. If you get turned down, to see it as a learning, you keep moving forward and keep striving to where you want to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love when Kelly revealed the age at which she knew what she wanted to do with her career.
Yeah, it was a risky question from you, but I like it. She was happy to answer it.
Do I ask the CEO of Netball Australia a question about age?
Yeah. I was worried for a split second, but she was happy to answer it, which is
good on her. But yeah, so she was in her early 30s when she decided, I want a CEO job. And that was really nice to hear because a lot of people feel like they have to rush into their career or they have to get to a certain point by a certain point of time. And it was just so nice and refreshing to hear from Kelly that you don't have to have it all figured out. You can take your time. Like I loved her point that life is long.
Yeah.
You got to have something to do at the end of it. Almost like don't get there too soon because you want to be able to enjoy it.
She's going to have to be a CEO forever.
Yeah. I don't know if I could do that.
Nah. God, no.
So yeah, that's the last thing I'm leaving from with Kelly is just don't rush it. Don't put a timestamp on a particular job at a particular point in time. You can get to any stage of your career and have a new goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Rubes, any other apps you think people would enjoy that kind of relate to this episode?
Yeah, well, we mentioned Sarah Stiles. She is episode, I reckon she's like 83 and 85. We did like a great...
Part 1, Part 2.
Yeah, Part 1, Part 2 series. So she's now the Director for Women and Girls in Sport and Recreation at the Victorian Government. She's an incredible person if you want to hear more about gender equality in sport. Similarly, we talked to Christy Collier-Hill back when she was the CEO of the Deakin Melbourne Boomers. She's now the head of the WNBL.
Yeah.
And we talked to her around the 110 to 120 mark, I reckon. This one's really escaped me. This one's really escaped me.
Stumped you.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try and rectify that one. But she's a fantastic listen too. So Sarah Stiles, Christy Collier-Hill. Go back and have a listen to those two superstars.
Awesome. Find them on wherever you get your podcasts. I'm sure the search tool will help you out on that one instead of the number. Awesome. Well, connect with us on LinkedIn, plus be sure to jump into the SportsGrad community. We'd love to chat with you on there. Head to sportsgrad.com.au/community to join or head to the link in our show notes. Also, if you love the show, my voice is just gone. If you love the show, we'd love you to rate the show 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast. subscribe on Apple or follow on Spotify. Let's go rest my voice. It's not too good.
You just got there.
Yeah, got there in the end. Thanks for listening. See you next time.